So I'm Tom. I'm co-founder and CTO of a company called Thriva. We're a health tech company. We've been around for about a year now, and we're all about preventative healthcare, which is what I want to talk about today. So we help people track their health over time. So, what's the problem? It's kind of crazy in these days, in these modern times, where we have technology in our pocket, with a supercomputer in our pocket, pretty much compared to old standards. We can find out pretty much anything about the world around us. We can find out the weather next week. We can look at tons of different stuff. We're connected to this amazing thing, the internet. But actually, arguably one of the most important things is kind of closed off to us, our bodies. We don't really know what's going on inside our bodies. And this has led to what's known as the reactive health paradigm. And so actually, healthcare is closer to sick care. And what that means is people actually wait until something goes wrong before they seek help. So rather than trying to nip problems in the bud, actually, we kind of are pretty blind to what's going on, and then suddenly something goes wrong. So you can see in this graph, for example, that if one aspect of your health is declining over time, it could be a variety of things. But actually in this stage of intervention, where you're still in control, you can still make changes to this through things you have control over, like diet, exercise, maybe just seeing your GP, which isn't ending up in the hospital. You can change this, but unfortunately you don't know what's going on because you don't have the data to tell you. And unfortunately, this ends up getting worse and worse, and we end up having some kind of event. Unfortunately, sometimes it's things like heart attacks and strokes, and we end up getting past the stage where we can manage it ourselves, and suddenly we have to get the pros in. So this has led to huge problems with our National Health Service. And so 1 in 3 deaths prevented, actually 48% of those are down to cardiovascular disease and diabetes alone. And this is only due to get worse. So you can see over the next kind of 15 odd years, the NHS is looking to spend 17 billion a year alone on diabetes alone in the year 2035. So it's easy to talk about the big problems, the ones we all think about, life-threatening illnesses, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, but actually there are tons of people living with completely manageable issues which just stop us being our healthiest and kind of affect our day-to-day lives. And they're not going to kill us, but actually they just stop us being at our best. So for example, thyroid issues in women are actually surprisingly common and often go undiagnosed because the symptoms can get confused with other stuff and we just simply don't know that it's there. And I'm sure you kind of all seen in the news recently, huge problems with vitamin D deficiency in the UK. I mean, thankfully it's a lovely day today, but we don't have too many of these, over winter especially. And things like iron deficiency, anemia, is again quite common, and it's so simple to fix. It's diet, it's supplements, and it's all within our control. So, how do we get away from this problem? How do we move away from this reactive health paradigm? So, this is what I'm going to talk about today, and it's preventative healthcare. So you can see here, preventative healthcare is all about just getting feedback so that you can prevent problems escalating and identify risks and issues before they get to the point where you can no longer manage them. And so there are 2 main parts of preventive healthcare. The first part is proactive healthcare. So what does this mean? This is all about measuring regularly so that you can have this tighter feedback loop of information. So when things start to go slightly off course, you can make small adjustments and things that you can control, like diet and exercise and things like that, rather than making huge lifestyle changes down the line. And the great thing is, most of these things are in our control. So the most common causes of cardiovascular disease and things like that are smoking, alcohol, diet and exercise. And yeah, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy to get out of these problems, but at least if you have the information and it's within your control, there's more evidence to say. And so, for example, there are already kind of things, proactive healthcare has already happened, for example. So I'm sure that you'll brush your teeth this morning. Of course you did, right? You do it every day, you've been doing it since you were a child because your mum and dad told you to do it. You don't even think about it. And yeah, kind of it's a bit annoying, but you would never consider not doing it. And I'm sure also that everyone, well, hopefully, gets fairly regular checkups at a dentist. And that's very much proactive healthcare, right? So that's you don't wait until your teeth hurt or you get gum disease or teeth start falling out before you try and address these problems. And yet that doesn't really happen for the rest of our health, which is, I find is kind of crazy. So the second part of preventive healthcare is this idea of predictive healthcare. And this is kind of something that's all has started rolling on this, and it's in its early stage, and there's some already really interesting applications, but not on a wide scale yet. So it's all about using data, using vast amounts of data we collect in various places and applying really modern, interesting techniques. So that, there's neural networks and this idea of advanced AI. And a recent thing this was Google partnered, Google's DeepMind partnered with the NHS, and we're doing really interesting stuff with this data. And this is all actually preventing problems long before they occur. So long before they're symptomatic, long before the risk is even there. Probably long before a doctor would even be able to diagnose anything. So what are the other benefits of preventive healthcare? Well, the first is just a really interesting data insight. So actually, data like this doesn't really exist. For example, so we talked to our lab recently, we're interested in getting some benchmarking around how people stand and where the population stands. And we actually know that it makes sense because in all the testing we've run, we're looking for problems. So all the data is kind of skewed, it's biased, and we can't really base it on that. Whereas looking at data long before these issues occur and trying to identify trends, like with the preventive, predictive healthcare that I was talking about, is really fascinating. There's going to be some really interesting data that can come out of this. And it's not just for sick people, we can all contribute to this. It also makes health more personal. What do I mean by that? So everybody is different. So everybody is react differently to different things. And actually this paradigm allows people to work out what works for them, which is really important. So that could be on a biological level, or it could be on an emotional, behavioural level. People with this feedback, this personalized feedback loop, can actually say, okay, I know this doesn't work, so tried it, let's try something else and see what works for them. And really importantly, it lets our healthcare services get back to what they do best, which is treating real disease and illness, and hopefully taking some of the strain off these preventable diseases off the NHS, for example. So what are the challenges? Like most things, there are a huge range of challenges and actually some dangers in this kind of thing. And this is something that we have to manage very carefully and really think about as we try and push this forward as a community. So the first is that changing behaviour is really hard. We are not, as a species, good at introducing new behaviours and changing our behaviours and getting it into routine. So, for example, quick show of hands, who here has or been given a wearable tracker? So Fitbit, Jawbone. Okay, change my head. Okay, so those who put their hands up, keep your hand up if you're wearing it right now. Okay, so I think actually the majority of you wearing it, but it wasn't great to start with. So, and one of the reasons for that actually, so things like trackers are great, but one of the reasons, and it's very easy. So you put it on your wrist, it's not invasive, it's not particularly difficult. They don't always look great, but it's something we're told is help us. And at one point, the people who bought them have made the decision that actually this is something valuable they should be doing. So why do we stop wearing them? Why don't these things continue to happen? I think one of the issues which is specific to that, is that the data itself needs to be actionable and insightful. So counting your steps is always so useful because how do you act on that? So the data really has to be actionable. And actually, for example, we talked about dental care earlier. It took a world war, after World War II, to kind of get people actually regularly practicing this simple dental care, which is brushing their teeth every day. This was part of the regulated the hygiene for GIs in the war, and they had to do this every day. And actually, when they came back, they talked about this, and it just naturally kind of grew. It's just something we do now. But actually saw a big fall in tooth decay and issues that were being treated at the time, and it seems crazy now looking back at it, but it actually, it takes those kind of big movements to actually create these new behaviours on a wide scale. So there's also a lack of openness. So there's, kind of two things about that. The first is that the data itself is not very open. So kind of Ben's just talked about this kind of issue, and we've got a ton of really interesting data from various services, products, businesses, bodies, whatever it is. But actually it's all siloed. It's really difficult to access, and actually there are multiple sets which if you put them together, they could do really interesting stuff, and we can get some really valuable insight. But it just doesn't happen because either people just don't have the right incentives to do it, or it's commercially driven, whatever it is. And it's great that we're trying to kind of push this forward now. And the second issue is that we aren't that open. So health is inherently private, and I think that's obviously important. But actually, for better or worse, we're actually getting to the point where we are sharing more and more about ourselves, and we're more and more willing to be open about us, whether it's our location, or whether it's what we're doing, or whether it's who we're speaking to, whatever it is. But actually that doesn't really apply to health, and I think that's important that we push forward this idea that health isn't actually inherently, it doesn't all have to be really secretive, and whether it's even just talking to your friends or actually opening up data to allow other people to use it and do great things with it. I think that's really important. I think that's something that we need to try and push forward. And it has to be balanced, of course, but I think that's something we need to look at. So the other obvious issue is that not everyone is a doctor. So this is already a problem now. Kind of, if people Google symptoms and it comes back, or it inevitably comes back as some rare form of cancer, and they're sure they're dying. But it's really important that as people get more information about themselves, and we allow them to access more about their bodies, and they kind of think they have a better understanding, it's really important to know that you still need professionals there, you still need doctors, and this isn't something that's going to replace that. And people need to be aware when they need to go to a doctor and don't try and diagnose themselves, and certainly don't try and treat themselves. So the people that are going to build these products and services going to push this idea of preventive health forward aren't necessarily people just in the medical community. It's likely going to be technologists and entrepreneurs and people who like building big companies and taking on big challenges in industries which need a big shake-up. And so one of the biggest companies in the world, Facebook, was built on a mantra of move fast and break things, which is pretty terrifying when you think about that in the context of health, right? So I think that's one of the things that we need to be careful of as well. Is that there's a danger that the people who are building these kind of companies won't necessarily keep that front of mind. I think it's really important. You have to remember these are people's lives. So when you're dealing with people's health, actually it's really important to remember day to day. You can be running all the code you want, but at the end of the day, this is someone's health you're talking about. So that's kind of a whirlwind tour of where I see the current state of preventive healthcare and proactive healthcare. As I said, there's people doing it. There are various ways in which you can do it, and that's kind of what we at Thriva are working on right now as well. And I'm really excited to see where that goes. And same with predictive healthcare. So I think we're on the start of this exponential curve at the moment. It's hard to see it when you're standing looking up at it because you don't see what's in front of you. But over the next 20 years or so, I think we're going to see some really, really interesting advancements in this area. And in terms of technology, it's not just going to be the medical technology that you would immediately think of. So you might think of new lab equipment and interesting diagnostic tools. But actually, things like just the smartphone you have in your pocket and just things like VR and various different technologies are going to completely revolutionise the way we think about our own health and the way we act day to day. So I want to leave you with a bit of a contrived example, definitely, but just of how I think this, what could this look like for an average human in the year 2030, which isn't that far away, and I don't think this is probably too ridiculous to say that happens. So genome sequencing is becoming so cheap that it will be standard practice. Just everyone, when they're born, at some point early in their life, will have a genome sequence. And the latest research will show that what you're at risk of, what we need to look for, what can happen. And this research is getting better and better every day. So you've had your genome sequence. It shows you're at risk of hyperfamilial cholesterolemia, right? So hereditary high cholesterol. Not kind of life-threatening if managed well, fine, but it's something to be aware of. So your Apple Eye chip, which is in your wrist, is set up to track your LDL and HDL cholesterol levels, and your doctor is going to be this, and maybe you can track it on your Thriva dashboard. And a few years later, your doctor's tracking these things, and he gets little notifications. Says actually, Tom his cholesterol levels are pretty high, and it looks like actually he might have hyperfamilial cholesterolemia. So you get a little notification and you put on your VR headset, and within 10 seconds you're sitting in front of your doctor talking to him. He says, right Tom, he explains the situation, says, I'm going to prescribe you some statins to manage this and we'll track it over time. So rather than you go to the pharmacy to collect your prescription, Amazon tells you that your statins are already on your way and will be on your drone landing pad within 2 minutes. So you're taking these, and it's manageable. It's tracked in your dashboard. Your doctor's comfortable that the situation's improving and this is fine. It's all managed. And before a problem's even occurred, you've never had a symptom. This has not been a problem in your life. One forward a few years. Okay, so you have been living your life, you've been tracking everything, and everything in kind of your baseline health looks good. But you get a push notification. So on your phone that says, actually, the local hospital says that we require you to come in for an appointment as a matter of urgency within the next 2 days. That sounds great. Luckily, Uber has sent you a push notification say a self-driving car's outside already. So you don't even have to worry about walking there. So you get in, you go to the hospital, they sit you down, and they explain that IBM Watson Health has been crunching data for decades at this point, and it's just getting so good. Like it sees stuff that we would never see way before it happens, and it uses a crazy range of data sources. So it's looked at where you've been on holiday based on your check-ins. It's looked on your movements. It knows your genetic makeup. It knows your age and gender and ethnicity. And because of all these things, it's identified that actually you're at risk of kind of a rare kind of skin cancer. So the hospital explains this, and actually they say, okay, we're going to now give you an ingestible piece of kit that just is going to measure some of this stuff over the next few weeks to check whether this is a problem. And you take it, it identifies that yes, it was a problem, but it's detected so early that it actually is no longer an issue. And this is kind of the way we're going to be treating these kind of illnesses. So it kind of might sound, it sounds very like science fiction, and kind of at this point it is, although lots of the stuff I'm mentioning is lots of it's already in existence and being used for various different things. But I just think it's exciting, and I think it's something that is almost certainly it is certainly going to happen over the next couple of decades, maybe longer, depending on technology and how that changes. But I think we need to understand that health is now going to be more in our control, and it's up to us, for the sake of our national health services and various other things, that we need to start managing our health better and prevent these issues before they occur. So that's a bit of a whirlwind tour of preventive health. I just want to say thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.